Do you want Instagrammers or TikTokers to post about your brand? Or do you actually want to engage creators who influence their audience to buy your product? If you're in the latter of those two, you've come to the right place. Welcome to Winfluence, the Influence Marketing Podcast. Hello again, friends. Thanks for tuning in to Winfluence, the Influence Marketing Podcast. As we enter 2024, I told you we were going to dial in our pursuit of changing the mindset in the influencer marketing industry to help brands and agencies focus on influence, not just influencers. So we're going to have a lot of conversations with a lot of different people along the way to make that happen. We're going to kick off the year talking to one of my favorite people. Krista Neher has been a leading authority on digital marketing for as long as I can remember. She's a 6-time best-selling author and founder of Bootcamp Digital, an education brand that offers digital marketing certification. Along the way, Krista has had to not only teach people about influence marketing, but dig in and practice the craft a bit as a consultant too. But her wide range of expertise and ability, plus her focus on making digital marketing a practical and cost-efficient investment for her clients, gives her that broad perspective I look for in someone to just chop up and chew through the conversations in the space. Today on Winfluence, I'll dig into influence marketing with Krista. We'll talk about how to build an influence plan, calculate the value of your influencer relationships, and I'll see if my assertions about influence marketing hold up to her scrutiny. It's a perspective I certainly respect and know you'll enjoy. Krista Neher is coming up on Winfluence. You know by now, Winfluence is presented by Scipio.ai. Its software and managed services helps brands transform their digital marketing with user-generated content, videos, and images at scale. So why is UGC so important? Well, Shopify data shows UGC content quadruples your ad click-through rates. UGC drives as much as 7 times more engagement on social media. UGC improves website conversions by as much as 29% and click-through rates by as much as 73%. That's compared to just standard brand content that you're probably currently using. UGC is also more trusted by consumers than even traditional influencer content. Scipio.ai allows you to find the content creators already sharing the type of content your brand values, helps you recruit them to do that for you, and does so on scale. It's cost efficient. It solves your organic and paid content problems. And Scipio.ai has a team to help you do it all in a neat managed service package. Once you have that library of user-generated content, Scipio.ai's generative AI solution allows you to quickly slice together and produce 15 or 30-second video ads for Meta or TikTok from your own UGC. Remember that stat, UGC quadruples ad click-through rates? Scipio.ai makes it easy to go get UGC, then create ads with it all, and the cost is something to behold. Go to jasonfalls.co/Scipio, fill out that form, and I'll personally set up time to show you how we can scale the acquisition of UGC for your brand, then turn all that user-generated content into ready-to-go video ads. It will cut your ad production time and budget into fragments of what you're likely spending now. That's jasonfalls.co/Scipio, CIPIO. Scale your UGC and solve a whole bunch of content problems for paid and owned campaigns for a surprisingly reasonable price. jasonfalls.co/Scipio. What does a digital marketing expert think of influencers and my take on influence marketing? Krista Neher from Bootcamp Digital will tell us next on Winfluence. So, Krista, I have a fun little game for you here. Can you name all the titles of your books from memory? Because I've done 3 and I struggle.
Probably not, to be honest.
Well, here I wrote them down so that I could remember them. So you got Digital Marketing That Works, Social Media Marketing, A Strategic Approach, Social Media Field Guide, Visual Social Marketing for Dummies, and Visual Social Media Marketing. Did I get them all? I think I got them all.
I have one more, Launch Yourself, which is about personal branding.
There you go. Launch Yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
So I missed one. Well, there you go. And all of them best-selling books. I'm curious, just for the people out there who have thought about writing a book or have, are in the marketing space and might be interested in doing that, you've done 6. So what's your take on someone saying, should I write a book?
I think there's always value in writing a book because there's always people who want to read your book, and it will always grow your credibility. Most people just don't get started. So many people I know will tell me, oh, I want to write a book, and they just never do it, right? The key to success, I think, is, so because what I do is training and speaking, right? I think in terms of like models and frameworks and how things are organized. Once you have your like organization of your idea, writing is easy. Like I joke, I could write a book in 2 weeks as fast as the typing will go. Because since I'm training people all the time, I have the frameworks, I have the ideas. Once that's in place, the writing should not be that hard, right?
Yeah.
But you just get the real key is just like, do it. And these days, anyone can publish a book. You don't need a publisher. I've done both, and I don't know that the publisher has that many real advantages, to be honest. And it's a heck of a lot more work. So just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if I were to do another book, what I've sort of learned, and there's 2 sides to this coin. Number one, I would self-publish because with the way that you can build it with Amazon and whatnot, it can be print on demand, and you can like make some little bit of a margin off of each book sold, which you're not going to do. You're not going to really make any money from royalties from a publisher. After the initial, they'll pay you an advance on your royalties. You'll get that, but then you won't get anything else. So there's that piece. But then I also realized that the other piece of it is I'm not the guy who goes out there and has a 40,000 person email list that I can sell a book to. So a publisher doesn't really care much about me, right, especially now that the only social network that I had a lot of followers on, which was X/Twitter, nobody pays attention to anymore. So right. I think self-publishing would be, if I wanted to do it again, and I don't know that I want to do it again, but yeah, for those of you out there who are thinking about it, I thought I'd throw that out there since Krista's been all over it.
Yeah, here's what I would say though. So people always ask me like, how do you market your books? And I'm like, oh, that's cute. You think I exist to market a $5 book, right? You don't exist to market your book exists to market you, right? So once you frame the purpose of your book properly, to me, the reason to self-publish is actually, even if you go with a big publisher, believe it or not, I wrote the first textbook on social media in 2008. I still get checks from that. Yeah. But crazy, right? I just got one recently. I was like, seriously? But the thing is, like, if you self-publish, you can get your own book at cost. And that's a huge tool for you because we send it to prospects. I'll give it away whenever I speak. We'll do book signings. Sure, I can make a little bit of money, and that's nice, but it's not about the money. It's about the visibility and using my book as a marketing tool. Yeah. So I think if you think about what you want from your book, self-publishing makes more sense these days anyways.
Yeah. A business book is basically a big, thick business card.
Right. Totally.
You're putting that out there and saying, here, call me. And they go, holy crap, this is not a business card. So that's what it is. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Bootcamp Digital. You started it a long time ago. You've been doing it for a long time. You've got a team of trainers now. You've got clients all over the world. Give people a sense of what Bootcamp Digital is and what all kind of work you do so that they can sort of understand the context that you bring to the conversation today.
Yeah. So I've been in the digital marketing space for over 20 years. Hard to believe, right? Probably the same as you. And Bootcamp Digital really specializes in capability development and education. So we're not an agency. You can't hire me to do your marketing for you. What we do is we help organizations and individuals build the capabilities to get the results they deserve from digital marketing, because there's so many gaps right now, right? There's a bit of a knowledge gap. Some people don't know, but even people who know something aren't applying it. So for example, we worked with a big global healthcare company, household name, and their marketing team, I showed them all these stats about why mobile's important. And I said, how many of you already know this? And everyone puts up their hands. We all know mobile's important. I'm like, great. Why can't I fill out the form on your website from my phone? Nobody is applying their knowledge, right? So what we focus on is that application and giving people the skills and tools to put it to work. So we do a combination of online learning, we do customized workshops, and we do boot camps, all to help people get the results they should by knowing and applying the best practices in digital.
So in the course of developing these digital marketing best practices and courses and frameworks and whatnot, where in that, and I'm asking both questions on the timeline from 2008 or 2009, whenever you started the trainings to now, and then where in the sort of priority structure within those trainings, where do influencers come in? How important are they? And when you're talking to clients and businesses like that healthcare company about influencers and influence marketing.
So I think influencer marketing is interesting because it kind of is one of these things, like I would say for the last 4 years, if you read any of like big trends for the next year, these annoying posts that we both contribute to that have the same thing every year.
Yeah.
Influencer marketing is always there. It reminds me of like when I started 10 years in a row was the year of mobile.
Yeah.
And eventually it kind of hits, right? So I feel like with influencer marketing, the truth is it's not right for every business. It's a lot of investment. It takes a lot of time and a lot of people can't be successful at it. It reminds me almost of like affiliate marketing. If you're just like, oh, let me dabble in this and put an affiliate marketing link on my site, it doesn't work. It's a whole specialized area and you need to know what you're doing and you need partners who know how to do it. I think with influencer marketing, it's the same thing. It's incredibly powerful, but you need to actually invest in like a properly thought out program and partner with people who know how to do it if you don't. Because so many people struggle, they end up, just looking up people on Instagram or something and sending them direct messages. This is not how it's done, right? So I think to me, it's a powerful tool. Will it ever be at a point where everyone is using it? I don't think so. It certainly is hotter right now. But the reason I don't think everyone will use it, I don't think they all have the resources to invest in it properly, right? It's not that there couldn't be a benefit. It's more about, just where it sits among the priorities. But it's definitely growing. And especially, I would say in B2B, we're seeing a lot more interest and growth there as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the biggest sort of problem that I see in the marketplace today, and I've been, very specialized on influence marketing for several years now, but the biggest problem I see, and I would imagine you probably see this as well with your clients, but let me ask you the question to see if you do, is that the brands that are trying to participate in, and not the outliers on the top that really understand it and are investing in it, but that middle of the road brand or the starter brand that's starting to invest in time and interest in influence marketing, they are treating it like we treated it in 2007. They want to sponsor posts. They want to basically, let's buy an ad on that person's Instagram feed, and that's what they think it is. That's what I see. Is that what you see?
Sometimes. I mean, I think that's like the transactional stuff. And those are the people who then complain it doesn't work, right? Yep. Because the truth is, it's much more about relationships. So I worked with this very big brand and, big marketing budgets, and they even hired an agency to do this execution. But literally, it was so transactional, right? It was a food product targeting athletes. So they filmed like workout influencers and they were like, hey, do an integration of our brand. That was the direction, right? So there was not enough direction to the influencers. Many of these influencers were not really seasoned at working with brands. So their posts were, among the worst performing of their content in general, right? Because either they made it like an ad or the brand wasn't there at all, right? And either of those is not really good. And so you look at that and you say, man, why did this not work? And there's a number of reasons, but one is it was an uber transactional relationship, right? It was, hey, do 3 posts and I'll give you this. And I think those are a little bit harder to make work because neither party is really invested in a relationship, right? You're not paying them enough for them to want to spend a whole bunch of time. And they're not interested enough because they're not making so much money off you, right? You're only paying for a couple posts. So I think it's about defining up front, what do you really want to get out of this program? Is it a relationship or is it more transactional? And I think where you see the success stories do tend to be those more relationship oriented posts. But of course, that takes more time and work, and not everyone allocates budgets for that.
And when they do allocate budgets for it, they don't allocate enough. But, well, you're obviously speaking my language here. We're talking to Krista Neher from Bootcamp Digital. When we come back, we're going to see what Krista thinks about the concept of influence marketing without the R, and also get some practical tips from her too. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Winfluence, sitting in with Krista Neher from Bootcamp Digital. We're talking influence marketing. Well, we were talking about influencers before the break, but now I want to throw this out there. I think, Krista, by now you probably have seen or heard my little rants and incantations on influence marketing without the R versus influencer marketing. My philosophy is really that's the biggest problem that brands have with influencer marketing is they're focused on the influencer. They're not focused on what they're trying to accomplish, which is the influence. So where does that philosophy, that theory, that concept hold with you? Am I in the right direction? Am I going the right way? Am I thinking the right way?
I mean, this is true of any part of digital marketing, I would argue. We just get in activity mode before we think of what do we really want out of it. And then we're constantly in this loop of wait, did this work? But wait, why did we do it? Right? I would argue that for a lot of aspects right now. But, I think when it comes to I'll use your term now, influence marketing. It's exactly that, right? If it's about an influencer and it's transactional, you're really almost substituting a paid media strategy, which frankly would just be more efficient to execute for an influencer strategy, right? So if I'm just going to pay you, if I called you up and said, hey, Jason, could you post this 3 times for me? I could much more efficiently do paid media and target your audience one way or another. It would be cheaper. I would reach more people, etc. The point of working with influencers is that they have influence, right? And that they're getting you a better results than paid media alone, right? So if you listen to where I think you see this in traditional media is the difference between running an ad on radio or I don't know, judge me if you will, but when you listen to Howard Stern on Sirius, he does personal endorsements for the plugs, right? He'll be like, oh, I use this and it's the squatty potty. If you hear him talk about it, you think this thing is going to change your life, right? That's the value of marketing with people who have influence, right? Is that it's a more valuable interaction than if you just ran an ad yourself. And I think that's what people kind of miss when they make it transactional is they almost just use it as paid media and it doesn't have that extra impact. The investment and, hassle, I mean, maybe not hassle is the right word, but the investment you make in working with an influencer should be that they are exerting their influence and all of the equity they've built to promote and support your product. Otherwise, just use paid media.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree with that and makes a lot of sense. And I think it aligns with some of the things that I've been jumping up and down and screaming about, which is, you can, invest in having an influencer, do a few posts for you. But if you're not building that relationship, if you're not bringing them into the fold, having them do an immersion with your brand, get to know the product team, all that kind of stuff, then the message that they're taking to that audience is not going to be influential. It's going to be basically like they're reading a cue card and they're just basically turning the keys so that they can get the check. Whereas if you build that relationship over time and you immerse the influencers, the creators with your brand in some way where they feel like there's some sort of connection with the brand, now all of a sudden they don't need a script. They don't need talking points. They know you and they can talk very genuinely to their audience about you. And so it's those longer term relationships that I think wind up being a lot smarter because they're less transactional and more about, hey, let's hit the frequency, not just the reach, right? Let's talk to this audience over and over again about this product, about this brand, et cetera. And so that tends to do better performance-wise, at least in my experience.
Yeah, well, and I think part of it too is finding influencers who are inherently the right fit and will bring passion for what you're doing, right? So one of the examples I used to use, this was a million years ago. I'm sure you remember, in the early days of Twitter and influencer marketing, people like you and I who were semi-popular, you would get hit up with stuff all the time, right? Oh, can I send you this free $1,000 office chair? And I kind of want a $1,000 office chair for free. So sure. I'm going to say yes to that, right? But the thing is, so I'll say yes and I'll do what they've asked because I don't know, it's probably really nice and more than I would spend. So I got the chair, I did what was asked of me. And that was kind of the end of it, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas when you look at partnerships with brands you actually care about or recommend or understand, their brand story and their narrative, what and how you talk about them as an influencer is so different, which I think is what you're getting at. So it takes a lot more investment and strategic thinking for brands to do it well, but you, in theory, get a lifetime of payout even after you stop paying that person, right? If I think of some of the social media platforms I've been an ambassador for in the past, if it's the right fit, it's a tool I actually like and I see the value and I know the vision of that organization. And I would be happy to recommend it for free, but I'm
Mhm.
deliberate about recommending it because I'm paid to, right?
Right.
And that's, I think, what you want.
Yeah. Well, and also too, I think for those brands out there and those brand managers that are deciding how much money to spend and what to invest on influence marketing, that sort of state of being is intimidating because they realize, okay, if I do this one-off campaign for a month, it's not going to be as effective as if I invest in these 3 or 4 creators for a year and develop those relationships and develop, that sort of cadence of information going out to their audience. It takes a big investment to do one creator for an entire year, much less 3 or 4. And so it can be really intimidating. So I understand where brand managers are hesitant, but in order to do it right, you really need to invest that time and attention into building those relationships. I'm curious, I know that in your training, you talk about planning for influence or influencers. How do you coach folks to map out a strategy for influencers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the key is kind of what you said at the beginning is the starting point is what are your goals, right? Still to this day, biggest companies in the world to smallest companies, tactics first. Oh, we need an influencer campaign. Pause. What do you want out of this? Right? What is it that you're really trying to get? Because the executions will look so different. You see some in fashion brands maybe where they can be really sales focused and they can post links to buy right away if it's a super hot fashion item. That can work. But is it brand awareness? Is it nurturing on a specific value proposition? What is it that you're hoping to gain from the relationships with these people? And I think that's the first starting point, is to have a singular primary goal. Then the question is, so what's your actual plan, right? What's your approach? Are you looking at, we've been kind of dissing on the transactional stuff, but that can work, right? If you just have low budget, you want to get your brand out there, you can just do a pay to play, right? That's an approach. So you want to look at what's the approach, right? Are you looking for long-term relationships? Are you looking for kind of a pay to play, quick hit, see how that goes, but figure out your approach. Then you want to figure out, well, what are the kinds of influencers you would want? Are they micro influencers? Where do they sit on the scale? What does your budget look like based on the kind of influencers you want? And then what is your execution? What are you specifically going to ask them to do? And what support do they need to do it? Even a good content creator doesn't necessarily know how to integrate your brand into what they do. You might need to partner with them and give them ideas and inspire them, especially depending on the types of influencers and how aligned they are with what you do, right? So like if I have a hotel and I invite travel influencers, okay, they probably know how to make a hotel look hot. I don't need to explain that to them. But if I'm Disney and I want to partner with maybe a mom food blogger, maybe we need to have some conversations to inspire her on oh, what if you make cupcakes featuring our new characters, right? So you need to think about all of that. Then from there, of course, identifying who the influencers are, validating the influencers is a big one. And I think that's a tricky spot for a lot of people because we tend to look a lot at numbers. I get it. I'm a numbers person, but the numbers only tell a part of the story, right? It's easy to game your numbers in social media these days. So we recommend people look at 4 things: reach, relevance, resonance, and the right fit with your brand when you're trying to validate who are the right influencers. And then, of course, from there you execute and measure your success. So It's not as simple as, hey, let's go find some people to talk about us. If you want to have impact, there's steps you want to follow in order to really connect in a meaningful way.
Yeah. Amen to all that. So you mentioned measure your success. And you and I were talking last week and you said something along the lines of people sometimes need to understand the value of the influence relationship. How do you evaluate what a creator means to a brand?
It's a good question. So I think the value comes in different ways, right? Where we run into difficulty is when we want to value an influencer like media, right? So we say, well, I could pay for these impressions, so I'm going to give an influencer this much for these impressions. First of all, you'll undervalue your influencers and actually no one would work with you. But if all your influencers are giving you is the same value as running an ad, seriously, just run an ad. Don't work with them. It's more work and more expensive, right? So I think part of it is that intangible of looking at what is the value of their audience and their recommendation. And some of it is a little bit more intangible. But that being said, it really comes down to the value of that influence and what that drives and aligning it to your brand goals, and I think where you see a lot of challenges in the influence space is when brand goals and executions are still misaligned, right? So we ask the influencers to post content that maybe feels awareness driven. And then we're like, why didn't they sell anything? Well, if you want them to sell stuff, like throw in an affiliate link and a discount, right? But it just depends what you're trying to achieve. So I think it's like starting with your goals is your best way to get your metrics, but also giving value to the unique value that influence brings with it is important, or you'll miss the big picture of why you would invest in it to begin with.
Yeah, for sure. And I would also throw this out there for those of you who are designing those transactional measurements, measurement programs for influencer marketing. There's two primary ways that you're going to be able to isolate and track a content creator's, contribution to your bottom line. Either A, they have a specific coupon code or something that their audience can enter when they purchase, or you're tracking them using UTM parameters. I would recommend both. And the reason I say that is because the coupon code is probably the easiest way to isolate income coming from an individual creator, but their audience doesn't always remember to use the code. So they might click on the link or tap on the link on Instagram or whatnot, come to your website, browse around a little bit, put something in their cart, then go away. Then they might go back to that website on their computer later, and now all of a sudden they've forgotten the code, but they may still transact. And if they transact that UTM parameter, you should be able to get into your analytics if you've got that set up right and understand that, hey, all of the traffic coming from this UTM parameter link has determined or has caused this many conversions, this much website traffic, et cetera. And so make sure you've got a couple of traps set to measure that, because those coupon codes, while they're super convenient, especially if you're working with podcasters as influencers, people don't remember those codes all the time, but they might remember the URL. So set a couple of double traps for you.
Yeah. But the only thing I would say too, is even if you're doing that, hey, here's a code to use and let's track website traffic, I think you still need to give value to just the awareness and nurturing that you're getting from this. I just talked about the Squatty Potty, right? I have not gone to their website. I don't know what Howard Stern's special discount code is. If I ever want to buy it, it would be a coupon. It would be on discount on Amazon, right? It would be completely untraceable.
Yeah.
But here I am talking to you about it. That brand is in my head, and I know what it does. It's disgusting, so I'm not going to talk about it here. But
well, thank you for that.
Are happening, because of that interaction. So I think part of it is, when it comes to measurement, you got to look at the full value picture that you're getting from it, because I do think it should be that higher value brand equity, that those messages that are harder to implant in people's brains. Again, why do I know how the Squatty Potty benefits you? That's a higher message than you can get out in a display ad. It's more a nurturing message. And so that's really valuable. And it's important to look holistically at the awareness benefit, the nurturing benefit, and the conversions in order to understand all the value you get. Yeah.
I did a holiday campaign with a client this year, and we did the coupon code and the UTM parameter thing. And about probably, leading up to Black Friday and then right after Black Friday, we weren't really seeing any conversions from the campaign, the influencer piece of it. And so I said, well, okay, let's make sure that the traps are set right, and let's look at it. But then let's do what you advise, pull back and look at it holistically. How are things looking overall? And the brand manager actually said, well, actually sales are up. We're performing pretty well. Everything's going well. And influencers are really, one of two or three things we're doing differently than we've done before. So we feel like it's contributing. We just can't put a specific measure on it. So what we did is we just kind of looked back and said, okay, website traffic is up. Website conversions are up. It may not be that people are clicking through that influencer's link, but they are seeing our ads on Facebook and Instagram. So we're getting that sort of exposure. That touch point is hitting those consumers, so that eventually they're coming to the website, and there's going to be multiple points of attribution for that. Influencers, unfortunately, for my piece of that campaign, weren't really getting the conversion checkbox at the end of the trail, But the client and I looked at it, and they were honest with me and themselves and said, well, you know what? Everything's working. Like, sales are up. We're doing well. We're actually doing better than we expected to do. So we can't complain too much, which was good for me.
Yeah. And I think that's what's really important, is being able to just like step back and see the full value, because what we know about purchases is most people don't buy right away on hearing about something. Yeah. Right? They say even on e-commerce sites, it takes, I think it's 5.6 visits before somebody buys. I literally have 78 tabs open on my browser right now, and half of them are things that maybe one day I'll buy. So if you're only looking at short-term conversions, I think you're also missing the big picture, because it's also super short-term, right? You're not going to be able, most attribution tracking will track 7, 28 days, something like that. You're not going to effectively track that I've had this open in my browser, and next year on your Black Friday sale, I've thought about it in advance and decided to give this to somebody. Like, I'll tell you, there's certain brands, I buy the Ordinary skincare products, and every year on Black Friday, they do a sale. How I discovered it the first year, I don't know. But now I literally know, okay, in November, I'm going to place a big order. And I think that's what's important to think about, is that most people don't convert in the short term, just on any product, unless it's a very highly incentivized buy now kind of like easy purchase. So you do have to take a different viewpoint.
And for those of you out there who are keeping score here, 5.7 visits to your website for an e-commerce transaction, that's assuming that the first 4.5 of those visits aren't to your mobile site, where they can't convert because your form doesn't show up right in the damn browser. You're going to have more than 5.7, and you're probably going to lose that customer too. Krista, where can people find you and the Bootcamp Digitals on them there interwebs?
Yeah, I'm at my name basically everywhere. I'm most active on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm trying to be more active on TikTok, and hit or miss. I'm like an old person, right? Exactly. Threads. No, not yet. Just kidding. Threads is like always an afterthought. And the same with Bootcamp Digital. We're at Bootcamp Digital. And if you follow us, we do a ton of free trainings, and we have a lot of resources, because we really do want to help people be more successful with this stuff, whether they're a customer or not. Digital is such a powerful opportunity, and it comes down to getting these details right. That's what your success is based on. So I love helping businesses to figure this stuff out.
Good stuff. Well, all those links will be in the show notes. We'll make sure everybody can get to them. Krista, appreciate your expertise and your time. Great to catch up.
Thanks.
Always a fun time talking with Krista. She's invited me to speak at one of her Bootcamp Digital events before, and we've known each other since she worked for a photo-based startup many years ago when we crossed paths at Blog World and South by Southwest. Smart one she is. Check her out at KristaNeher.com or bootcampdigital.com. Those links will be in our show notes as well. You can find those at jasonfalls.com. The latest episodes of Winfluence are now on the homepage just below the fold, so they're easy to find. You can look for Krista Neher there and click through to the episode. If you're on Instagram, you can also find the Krista Neher episode post on my IG. I'm at Jason Falls. You can comment with hashtag Krista. That will DM you the link you need, thanks to my pals at Stampede Social. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with someone else who may as well. And if you're enjoying Winfluence overall, help us grow. Tell somebody about the show. You probably know someone who might want to know more about influence marketing. Send them to winfluencepod.com or share a link to this episode on your social network of choice. If you have a moment, drop Winfluence a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. We are on them all. The show is now on video as well. Just look for Jason Falls Winfluence on YouTube to see the show as well as hear it. Winfluence is a production of Falls and Partners and presented by Scipio.ai. The technical production is by MPN Studios. Winfluence airs along MPN, the Marketing Podcast Network. Thanks for listening, folks. Let's talk again soon on Winfluence.